I've already been lucky enough and like privileged enough to do this because I've had this art education this whole time all throughout. But I know there's people that are coming into the race like now and they think they have to do it this one way versus there's so many people that here that do this in millions of different ways.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Procrastination Radio Show. I am your host, Ian Complex, and today we have another very special guest, the oozer of style, Ty Davis. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing good, Ian. Thank you
Hey,
for having me. I really appreciate it. That was great. That was great.
I'm happy that got that reaction because I saw it on the
Yeah.
bio. I was like, let me just make it a little subtle thing, not too crazy, not too crazy. But yeah, I always get these started with showing appreciation to the guests, and I feel like I've seen you around in this space a lot, and every time I've seen you, it's been a really, really, really amazing energy, and just everything. How you walk into events is just like always crazy. Just in yourself, there's like a light that's there. So I wanted to appreciate you for that. And again, just welcome you to the show.
Yo, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. It's weird being perceived,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. So it's hard to not have the perspective that anyone does. So
yeah,
yeah, super, super grateful. Um, it's a weird little thing where sometimes, I forget that I'm like here. I take up space. I'm seen in some ways. I kind of just go throughout it, kind of floating. So
yeah,
it's always interesting to hear, no matter what kind of bits are said.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Hmm.
I wanted to start this off by asking you, kind of in the theme of how I introduce people on the show, is just if someone asked someone very close to you who you were, how do you think they would answer that question?
Whoa. Um, I mean, honestly, for the most part, everyone thinks I'm like this kind of like super outgoing, kind of goofy dude. I just go out to a bunch of stuff. I know how to have like a good time, enjoy myself, and just I'm always kind of outside. I always try to see what's going on around here, just stay busy for the most part. I'm always doing something. I feel like personally, like, my perspective, I'm a lazy person, but a lot of people will tell me quite the opposite, that I'm always just up to something. So, I feel like this past year I've been like super busy. I'm always trying to just make sure something's getting done. Either I'm doing a set, I'm making some design stuff, some merch things. So, um, pretty much between the outgoing, hardworking, knows how to have a good time when they
Yeah,
can, and is always outside. So, yeah.
yeah, that's an
Hmm.
amazing answer. I think digging into more of like who you were, I was kind of amazed at how many things you actually do, and I wanted to kind of go all the way back and to really find out how photography kind of started the cascade of inspiration that got you to become this multifaceted artist that you are today.
Yeah, so that's like truly like the foundation for the
Yeah,
most part. I went to photography at my marriage charter. Shout out Mac, good old middle school and high school.
yeah,
Basically from like 12 all the way to like the start of college, and
yeah,
you know, I had an early edge definitely to the arts and like understanding how to make a conceptual body of work, piecing things together, making like a visual language, kind of just as a photographer. And then by the time I went into college, you know, um, relative to art schools and other places, that's their first foray into art. They might not have the same equal like opportunity. So I kind of realized like, damn, these are these people's first time holding a camera, experiencing what it's like to make a body of work, all these basic things that I've known for years. So I was pretty underwhelmed. Um, but also I think this is just like good for the lore. I had unfortunately I had a racist photo teacher and I was the
uh,
only black kid in class. And
okay,
yeah, so I remember in particular there was one I had the flu on Valentine's Day,
yeah,
and a lot of my peers and stuff told me he was making some pretty racist remarks the one day I wasn't there. And it was one of those unfortunate things that I realized like I'm gonna have to see this dude for the rest of the time in the major.
Right.
And it's at this
Wow.
point where, on top of that being like a bad experience with a teacher, um, and just like realizing where everyone's placed at, and like I don't need to be in this spot of just
Yeah.
relearning everything again.
Yeah.
I would rather just learn something new, paired up with the knowledge that I have. So um, design was completely by accident, which I think is super funny.
Yeah.
It just ended up working out in the sense of I didn't have to wait longer to graduate. It overlapped super well with the major and the minor, so I switched from a photo major to a photo minor and then made design the
Interesting.
major.
Yeah.
So now I can present, any image in any way. But
Right.
um, to back up a few steps, it was one of those things that I was super, and I mean ungodly, into the Adult Swim bumps before it was like a trend, like years ago. Like
Come on.
those were some of my favorite music, and like really relaxing things to watch. All came from that space and that time. And I was making bumps just for fun, just because I
Yeah.
thought it was a cool practice, and I really wanted to learn like video editing. So
Yeah.
learning like After Effects and Premiere. I took this specific professor to do that. Last minute, they changed the whole lesson plan to do this, and they were like, "We're learning Illustrator," and I was so so fucking mad, like ridiculously mad. And then ultimately, what was it? I taught myself Illustrator out of
Yeah.
pure hatred. I
Yeah.
wish I was joking. And I learned some cool things, and during that point of my life, I was going through it a little bit, just
Yeah.
because, being outside of Miami, being in a place that I'm not familiar to, the people that I was with, I was able to kind of teach myself how to use Illustrator by like just making some art about like what's going on, things that are people saying. Like it just helped me work through what I was kind of feeling. And this girl I was seeing at the time, she asked me to make her a shirt before we left for summer break, and I did. And then I just remember her telling me, "Is like." After I gave her the shirt in her
Mm.
hands, she was like, "You need to keep doing this." And
Wow.
here we are, 7 years later. So
That's
I used to be so like narrow-minded
yeah.
when it came to the arts in particular, and even to the people that I used to speak to when I was like, I was legit. It was just stuff like that. I was like, "Nah, I'm gonna be doing this forever," and I was like, "Nah, that's not how that works." So it was just cool because it made me realize, as much as I knew like Photoshop and other things as a photographer, learning Photoshop as a designer is like a completely different language.
Yeah.
And like understanding that the part of the brain that it unlocks, just mindset and everything, it's like
Yeah.
it's like you get a few extra wrinkles in your
Right.
brain, which is really funny. So it was just something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of just trickled down into everything. But I owe all the art, conceptual work, the eye and everything. Like it really trained my eye before I
Right.
really did anything else with design first, and
Right.
that I'm like super grateful for that. But
Yeah.
I still take pictures here and there, and it's something I want to lean back into again. But the reason why I guess I didn't really focus into it is because relative to college, and I think even here and overall,
Mhm.
is like if you're not doing portraiture, fashion, lifestyle, food photography, or anything, people don't really care about what you're doing.
Right.
I'm more of like a landscape kind of architectural. I
Yeah.
like spaces a lot,
Yeah.
but I think it's still useful. Like I still use it in every part of my practice for what I make too. So it's never gone away. It's just
Yeah.
definitely taken more of like a background, or just part of the tool belt for everything.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's super interesting. I feel like relating to the kind of jumping into design is it was funny how you were saying you learned Illustrator kind of against your will, because I feel like in the same way, like I have that and InDesign just
Oh, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started, Doug.
they're like just the monsters of the Adobe suite. And I just it's so funny, like you said, like having to approach your thinking in such a different way, because it's a different language entirely. Once you realize kind of what you haven't been thinking about, it's kind of another battle in figuring out how you can put this here and there. And I wonder if you kind of touched on a little bit of kind of your architecture background and your other interests kind of feeding into stuff. I wonder
Mm.
in what ways does that directly feed into the language of design for you? Like, can you see, like, I see a lot of those shapes and different things for you, but how do you see it for yourself?
Yeah, so I guess the overlap, at least relative to this, is my grandpa was an architect. He
Interesting.
was essentially my dad. Like he
Yeah.
raised me alongside, my grandma, my mom, etc. And unfortunately, it was like before the time I really got into design, he had passed, and
Mm.
it makes I always wonder like I wonder the conversations like he was already into the arts and like really great things, like really great pieces of media. Like he always was just doing so much in the
Yeah.
same vein, but always just picking apart like really cool and like over the top things. Like in my eyes, that dude knew everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was something I didn't come to appreciate until he passed, and I always wondered the conversation we would have relative to design, just considering the overlap. Like design is design, architecture, typography, this that. You can branch on into whatever subsect you want, but all this stuff kind of above me here is actually from a commission by this interior designer named Annie Shim. In 2019, she hired me. What was it to make like 30 pieces for a rendering she was doing, and I submitted 5 of them to a book. They all got into a book. It was great, super fun, and I it took me a while to get to that point of combining photography and graphic design and make like really cool mixed media. So like I think it's really cool how architecture is just straight up shape and form plus light. Everything else is texture, which is something I have like a huge focus and look into, and like how it how it naturally leads your eye, but in the sense of you're navigating a space. And I thought that was just such a cool experience, just from the place where we live relative to Miami. There's a lot of crazy buildings here and spaces, but when you navigate, beyond the nest and other places, it makes you wonder, like, kind of what's going on from how you naturally look and walk and experience through these things. But it's really just shape and form. And I thought that was really, amazing stuff. But this whole body of work was called Cove, and that to me the whole concept was based on places that are being gentrified around, like, the Biscayne Strip where all the motels are. And it's some like alleyways, some motels, other spots that are near that strip, but it's the peripheral of the area she kind of wanted me to go personally shoot. And I was thinking, like, as much as these photographs and architecture is like so rigid, there's still peripherals to every form that is in this image and space. So it's picking apart, choosing, shapes, line, form, color to extend upon with these photographs digitally with design stuff. And it was really cool to kind of like deconstruct an architectural thing digitally. And I had a lot of fun. To me, that was a really big turning point, seeing that switching to design had paid off, if that makes sense, because I was
Yeah.
shooting a lot of architectural stuff for a while.
Right.
And none of it, not to say that none of it didn't really hit, but I just didn't know the best ways to approach editing and kind
Yeah,
of
for sure.
adjusting these images.
Yeah.
So that's what it kind of boiled down to. Um, and, ever since then, I haven't really looked back, but it definitely was a huge inspiration. It's how I tackle, uh, you know, my eye, I guess, when
Mhm.
when
Mhm.
approaching, you know, um, for events, this, that, like
Yeah.
spaces are commanding, and it's
Yeah.
really cool to see how you just like naturally gravitate towards a space that you might have an interest in, that you're
Right.
just
Right.
only looking at from a viewer's perspective, that you're actually in.
Right.
It's really cool to see the degrees of like separation
Yeah.
between those things. So to play with that, whether it's imaginary, physical, whatever, is
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
a really fun like practice.
Yeah. That tangible, like you're saying, is such a different feeling, especially when your craft is mostly digital or mostly application work or just like a mock-up or something. It's like it's easy to forget that those things go so far as to like even a shirt. Like
Hmm.
what makes somebody want to wear something that might not be the best design technically. And reading into your work, you have this phrase of the imperfect work, which was one of the most beautifully put things that I've read in a long time, because I again felt like I struggled when learning the language, because I felt
Hmm.
like I couldn't express myself in the language. And that felt like I was speaking not for myself, but instead of it, like instead just for the work. And you learn through practice and through finding your own kind of identity in your practice to speak differently. And I wonder for you, just as for your outlook on when you do choose to work in certain projects or give time to certain things, um when did you start to implement that idea of the imperfect work, and when did that become
Mm.
your standard of kind of living?
Definitely post grad.
Yeah,
I was so, not to say that the curriculum or anything in like design school was super rigid. Like you had a lot of freedom to make everything,
yeah,
but design in itself forms. It's very uh, the purpose is functional. It must serve this purpose of I need to inform or tell you about this thing. And if it gets that across, it doesn't matter how it looks, you know? Um, that just all boils down to style, your own taste, everything else. But if it gets the point across, you got it. That's amazing. But it's in the sense of perfect isn't real. It will never be real. And if you just get married or attached, like it more goes down to detachment of your work. If you get married to the way it should be, you can't possibly explore the ifs or the happy accidents that can kind of come out in your work. And I feel like that's in the same thing. And this is something I'll say probably for like the rest of my life, and I think
yeah.
about a lot. Is you can't create while you analyze, and it's the
Mm,
same thing of how you can't
mm.
play while you practice.
Yeah, yeah,
There are two separate things, you
yeah.
know, and that's where the
Right.
imperfect lies is simply in just the play.
Yeah,
I think the minute you're able to play around with your own work
yeah,
and understand, like you know, you're not looking for a desired look, effect, this, whatever, that you're simply just in the mode of creating and you stumble across what it is that you didn't know you could do,
yeah,
or even simply just, you know, letting it be something as small as, oh, this file got corrupted and now I had to start over, but now I ended up making something better. That's
right,
still imperfect, you
right,
know?
right.
As much as it could be perfect, you're still going to find something to nitpick,
Yeah,
whether you could have done this, that. It all boils down to feeling. And if you feel like it feels right, that's all that it is, more than it is how it looks.
yeah,
And I think the imperfect more goes down to like, what is it? Like that's just philosophy wise, but I
yeah,
think what made it stick is that I did like a lot of printmaking in high school and college,
yeah.
and that truly is like a super meditative practice. Like you can definitely turn your brain off, and even if you think you're horrible at art, you can still print something like really beautiful from
Interesting.
like the technique, the color. But a lot of that is super finicky, and there's a lot of things that come out as imperfections that make that work way more beautiful. And a lot of the design work I make is kind of inspired by printmaking.
Mm,
So it's like, how do we, you know, take the practice of printmaking and apply it to a digital setting where I don't have all the equipment, the
yeah,
tools, but just
yeah,
have fun making and being in the mode of
right.
making, you know, each print,
Yeah,
each color,
yeah.
each this. And I think that's kind of what informs most of the stuff that I do right
That's super interesting. I think it kind of made me question how you communicate that to a client, because I
now.
know that's a whole other conversation to be had, and they might not necessarily want to hear that kind of part of it, because I
Yeah.
think some things get lost in that translation of this work has to be a certain way and this has to be a certain way. So how do you
Mhm.
maneuver that explanation?
Well, that's the thing. It's never brought up for client work. That's only for myself.
Got you.
That's only for what I want,
Got you.
and so on. I think if it's in the realm of collaboration or someone that you can client wise talk to,
Yeah.
that just is all of the imperfection and everything. That just belongs in the idea to sketch realm when
Mhm.
you're still
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
visualizing what you want it to be and exploring all the possible paths before you just refine it. Like art is reduction. Like Rick Rubin said it the best, you know, like if you can get the point across with the least amount of things, you're doing it. And that's it. Like it truly is a less is more. So I think imperfection allows the realm of um, being okay with ambiguous thought while still having solid execution. You can still think about it in a way that's not perfect, but as long as you know what to execute and how to do it, I think that allows you to tweak, explore, get out of your head, get into somebody else's head for, you know, things like that. So if you're able to communicate in that sense of, hey, like you might have this really amazing idea and you have this huge expectation in your head for the designer or for
Mhm.
the person that you're working with on what it should be.
Right.
But that's what the imperfection is. You have no idea until you work to that person versus your expectation. And like that's just still the philosophy before the practical use. So I think that's why you have to kind of hone in on the philosophy for your experimentation and how
Yeah.
you approach making this work versus how you express it to said client, because
Mm.
they won't understand your perspective
Yeah.
sometimes. They won't understand your choices, and all you can do as a designer is either facilitate to it, and be like, hey, you want something that brings something that's warm, that's
Yeah.
friendly. Like, all you can do is translate these things as best as you can, your ability as a
Yeah.
visual communicator. And that's what will get you through the imperfect to whatever is their perfect, you
Yeah.
know? But that's their standard versus you as the person making this for them, what you deem to be as perfect. And that's why imperfect is real. You
Yeah.
have two different
Yeah.
expectations of what perfect is.
That was one of my favorite things to listen to. And I I'm so happy because I feel like another very pivotal point of not only this show, but I feel like the space that I want to take up in this whatever this space is kind of just facilitating these conversations because I feel like there's a lot of you hold on to these thoughts and hold on to these things. I think that for my situation in the design world, I think that was one of the most important things I needed to hear in a very long time. It's very timely, and it's funny how things work like that. And I guess I wanted to ask you through that how have you felt about the design space around you? Do you feel like there's a community around you? Do you feel like there's a need for more conversations like this to hear others' thoughts and to kind of pick other people's brains?
Oh, fucking definitely. Like, that's an
Yeah,
understatement.
yeah,
And you'll probably agree with me in this sentiment. I don't know that many other designers, let alone that many other Black designers,
right, right,
relative to like Miami right now, especially.
yeah,
Like, I definitely have a few contemporaries. I have my good friend Goran Emmanuel, who's like a really talented merch designer for 3 Points.
mm,
Amazing dude, good friend. I love like how illustrative his work is, and he has this like childlike wonder to like a lot of the illustrations he makes that deals with like
yeah,
our favorite cartoons growing up, from like Sesame Street, this, that,
mm,
etc. I can't think of
yeah,
it. But
yeah,
then we also have Jan Anthony, aka Liquid Love, who makes a lot of great flyers for the Jezebel events that he does too. And those two have been in my pocket like, forever. Those are the two that I really see as amazing creatives. But then one of the recent creatives I've kind of stumbled across is Dune, aka Edao. His name's Edwin. He's a crazy good DJ. I had him on Public Energy Radio, and I've been seeing his design work, all throughout Miami for Miami Book Club, the Green Line, just like other things here and there. And I've always wondered who made it. And his quality of work is fantastic. But I was even talking about this with friends today. So like, I have a Discord server for all this stuff where I try to gather all the creatives where I can.
yeah,
And as much as I have the community there and we can talk, I don't have the. This all comes from the same place of like, I don't know people that speak my own language,
right,
and that's
right,
the
right,
biggest drive to like find a good team to work with in the spaces and that I participate in. But
100%.
you know, for some reason, like, music can be so collaborative, but art isn't. And that's what's so weird. And I want to answer that question really bad, is like,
Yeah,
why can't we take notes from how music is
yeah,
and then just
yeah,
simply make stuff as artists together?
yeah,
I don't know if it's an ego thing, the equipment or whatever. Like, why can't we have a studio day where everyone just comes to this one desktop?
yeah. Get your
I'm going to
laptop.
fuck around with this
Yeah,
laptop, whatever. I'm going to make this composition. You do the color, I'll do the texture. Like, why can't we
yeah,
just sit around and do that?
yeah,
And I want to use that Discord server to invite the spaces and the play for this. Like, I feel like for some reason artists feel like they can't have this play with other people,
yeah,
which to me is like really backwards in my head. Like,
yeah,
you're allowed to do these things, but also at the same time, I think that's because of the same gimmick of, oh, do you want to collab, bro? Like, oh, we should collab.
yeah,
Like, it would
yeah.
be so sick. But no one takes it seriously.
Right.
Like, it's at the same time, if you have the technical ability and you want to do it, fucking do it.
Yeah,
Like, come on. Um, and like, relative to the sphere of designers here, I don't see the new wave as much. But I'm thinking in the realm of straight up graphic design.
yeah,
I'm not talking in the sense of like the fashion designers that are out right now,
Right.
other just contemporaries that are crazy good.
Yeah.
Like the people that I like look and appreciate a lot is like Fairchild, Andre. He is absolutely killing it with all of his Fairchild stuff. The fact that he wants to make it like a workhouse practically to invite other people who might not be amazingly like visually creative or other visual creatives to then have as this like
Right.
workforce together, and
Right.
like that's
Right.
something I admire and that I'm
Yeah.
trying to do too. How do we make room? Like if you don't see people who do what you do, you make room for them at the table because they will
100%.
appear. That's
100%.
all that matters. And that's the kind of place that I find myself in right now. Is just like all I can do is make me stuff, worry about, inviting other people to this room to get them to talk. They will talk and it will just happen as organically as it could. I can't
Yeah.
force it.
Yeah.
But I really want to change it to like, why can't we just have like a studio day where like, the digital creatives sit around, do this, or maybe even the physical ones do it.
Mm-hmm.
And there needs to be this overlap
Right.
of where you make space for just these people to talk, for critique, for this or that. And like, to have the resources in the room is the bigger draw for me because I've already been lucky enough and like privileged enough to do this because
Yeah.
I've had this art education this whole time all throughout.
Right.
But I know
Right.
there's people that are coming into the race like now and they think they have to do it this one way versus there's so many people that here that do this
Yeah.
in millions
Yeah.
of different ways.
Yeah.
Whether it's money, whether it's, image, etc. There is no right answer. There is
Right.
no wrong answer.
Right.
And I think you just need to invite everyone. And that's what will foster the community to then talk about the state of design, things that you can learn from each other, and so on. And, you know, I think the biggest overlap that you will agree with me on this is music, is that you're able to go out to see all this music stuff more, but here's like the inherent flaw is that music takes up your time, art takes up your attention. Those are completely two different things versus the process. That's your
Yeah.
experience. So if
Yeah.
I'm not doing those things, that's how I go through it. I can absorb art at my own pace versus I
Right.
have to sit through time. I have to experience time. And that's always shared with more people versus the intimate versus the
Yeah.
self. And
Yeah.
that I think can change like how do we overlap or borrow from music to answer those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Hmm.
again an amazing insight. I think the the space for graphic designers, specifically visual designers, is so interesting now, especially on the internet.
Especially.
There's so many like podcasts and shows and just like you said, discords and conversations. Because I feel like for whatever reason, for a long time, I feel like design was a very kind of quiet kept. You do what you do. People consume it, like you said, on their own time. You're either in an
Hmm.
agency or you're freelancing. There's like very kind of by the book things. You get there, maybe you'll get to a creative director. Maybe this doesn't happen. But
Yeah.
feel like now more than ever, it's people who kind of have this superpower in their back pocket of being able to communicate ideas fully that are
Yeah.
now being able to flesh out themselves and be like, I do this also. I do music this way. I do this way. I do this way. But also I could help you communicate this way because that's an important piece that I think kind of falls to the wayside sometimes when people have a lot of the other components and then lack the one thing that sometimes makes or breaks it for people without them even knowing. Um, and I think to kind of transition to you and your interest in music, I want to know how that's been for you and how that has added to your experience as a human to have this other kind of uh interest that that is so innate to the human experience of enjoying things, but kind of putting it out there as like, hi, I do this also.
Yeah. So like being in art for so long,
Yeah.
for the most part, I have like a very strong and like confident way of approaching it.
Yeah.
But music and seeing from going from like spectator to then someone who participates and is trying to do more at the same time too, it's such a different battle
Yeah.
because people can be so sure about the sound that they want to push, the type of people that push the spaces, and even like the year and time of music. Like, it's the same thing for design too, and like art.
Yeah.
Like you can say,
Yeah.
maybe I like Art Nouveau, maybe I like
Right.
60s stuff, etc.
Right.
So, I mean, uh, I like learned. I've been DJing in like overall, like I've learned the ability to
Yeah.
DJ for
Yeah.
like 5 years.
Yeah.
Probably this Halloween will be 5 years this year.
Yeah.
And it was more of out of necessity. So while I was learning design in college, pretty much when I was like a sophomore, junior, all the
Mhm.
seniors that threw all the great events and parties in Savannah basically graduated, just straight up left,
Yeah.
and nothing else was going on. So it was just me and four of my other friends that were like, all
Yeah.
right, we have to do this, but we need
Right.
at least some other DJs and stuff. So like I just spent a Halloween learning virtual DJ on like a
Yeah.
crappy like MIDI controller I
Yeah.
got at like a pawn shop for like $20. I fixed it with my friend, and pretty much I would make the flyers for the party. My friend, who was like a freshman, who wasn't like an idiot,
Mhm.
had the
Mhm.
cult following, so he would say, "Hey guys, come to this party or
Yeah.
this bar or this
Yeah.
place." Um, One of our other friends was the radio captain of the whole college, so he taught us how to DJ, and
Wow.
he would also be like the headliner guy for
Yeah.
the night
Yeah.
because he would just play all the stuff
Right.
around town. And then it would be like our other friend who he didn't attend the college, but he knew enough friends with bars and houses to kind of do it at.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I was starting to slowly do it on the exit to college. COVID happened because I graduated to my bedroom. It became the COVID hobby just to like learn. Um, I ultimately met up some friends who we all went camping together. They were all DJs. It was basically DJ camp, and I didn't know how to use like club gear at that point. So I was like, all right, let's sit down, let's learn this. And now it's like, it's just not only expanded my palette of music and what I like playing, but
Yeah.
like, it's so cool to see the influence of DJing has allowed it to connect to my identity more as a black person.
Yeah.
Like, um, dance music is black music, and to find out that, techno,
Right.
house,
Right.
footwork, Baltimore club,
Yeah.
Jersey club, this is all black music has really like empowered me as a person. And that's why I really feel like I do it because I've always had like left field music taste from like my family and other friends. And, that's cool, that's fine. But I feel like that helped me a lot for like digging and other stuff. But relative to here, and being in the melting pot that we're in, like, it's black voices, it's black spaces. Like that to me is super. I want to see more of it. I would want to make room for it. It's really like motivating. So just being able to find other black voices and mediums that, get explored at the same time is really super fun to me. And like, the New York wave of stuff is really crazy right now. Like seeing I saw Gallagher Lustwork and Mo Moretti at Floyd,
Mm.
and it hit me like a bus that I was like, you're the first black out of town DJs that I've seen here. Out of all the times I
Mm.
would go there, and this was maybe like just over 2 years ago,
Yeah.
you know. And since then, I was like, damn, I really don't see that
Right.
many black DJs here outside of the realm of rap and hip hop,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that to me was really like empowering, and like I want to see how I can find others that do it. And that's the whole reason
Yeah.
why I did Public Energy Radio. It was just to
Yeah.
find other black DJs that are
Yeah.
talented around here that play some really good club music or
Right.
whatever,
Right. Right.
and I'm like really excited to just see where it goes, for the most part. But like on Twitter, everything else, like the amount of music that I just find so regularly
Yeah.
from like DJ event Twitter is just so nuts. So that's just like super cool too. And I never really thought of it because I always thought art is just so in my brain and relative to design is like I have such a way of imagining how it's tackled and used, how to talk about it with the spaces that it's in and everything like that, from fine art to casual to whatever. But music has always been as the spectator. So to now be on the same level of, oh, this is how people go out, push their sound, do these things is like super interesting because it's something I haven't considered. And it's like a really organic experience, and it makes me really motivated to meet other black DJs, people of color, queer people, like marginalized people, just because they're
Yeah.
they're the forerunners for all these
Right.
spaces and
Right.
culture,
Right.
and that overlaps going back to art and
Mhm.
where
Mhm.
we live and how we consume all these things.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
dance floor is universal no matter where you come
Right.
from.
Right.
And I think that's so cool to be a part of, because there's a lot of moments where I found myself just being like, I'm having a wonderful time. I'm having an amazing night with my friends. And
Yeah.
knowing to like, I could do that for someone else is like really, it makes me really happy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a I think it's such an escape just moving as a unit with people you don't even know. Nobody is saying a word. You're looking at conversations you have no input in, and it's just such a drive and such a force. And I think the the kind of the hunger and the change that I'm seeing in kind of different scenes like around the internet, specifically down here in South Florida, just how new spaces for music are being built, like just like the resurgence of certain like patterns and tempos, and people coming in asking for these things now. And I think in addition to a lot of the stuff on the internet that's happening, people are being able to curate what they want to hear and what they want to see. And now it feels really cool that people can look to their own kind of neighborhoods and be like, okay, this person does this person, I can go to this is fire, I can go to this is fire. But you kind of mentioned, and it was perfect time, I want to kind of break down what exactly is Public Energy and why was it started, and how do you see that being moved and changed as the years kind of come.
Yeah. So by being a spectator in the music space and being an art person for so long, it just kind of came to the point of like, how do we celebrate art the same way we celebrate music? Because there's more
Mm-hmm.
chances and opportunity to celebrate music on a weekly basis than there is art. So imagine this scenario, right? Um, I'm a DJ. I have a show. I can download a bunch of tracks. I can play my show. People see it, right? Not to diminish or anything, but that's just kind of like the typical, experience. So imagine this as a visual artist. I'm spending months, almost a year or years worth of my time trying to make, huge physical pieces, digital, etc. Really
Mm-hmm.
get this all together and find like a gallery that I have to either approach, pay, do this to
Yeah.
then maybe show my work.
Yeah.
Um, for one night
Yeah.
and I just put out one flyer,
Yeah.
and then maybe I sell some of my work later.
Yeah.
That's it. That's not fair,
No.
And the answer shouldn't only be collaboration, which is like unfortunate to me. Like it's cool, but like there could be a huge event going on, great stage production, everything, but you're going to remember the person spinning more than all the other stuff that went in to it visually. There's no name credits for the person who made the stage design, the lighting, the this, all of that. Like those are key parts that build up the experience, and I wish there was equal playing grounds to it. So, like I was saying prior, is what can we borrow from music to make the art equivalent of? What's the art version of an EP? What's the art version of an album? What's the art version of Bandcamp? What's the art version of streaming? And it's a really long-term project to figure that out for visual artists. So at its core, it's making a visual label for me to formally collaborate with someone and be serious. Like, hey, I want to help you roll out your upcoming projects that you
Yeah.
might have.
Yeah.
You've been on my radar for a bit, and I want to figure out the best way to roll this out for you
Yeah.
or with you. And pretty much between that, that's kind of where it's at. I would be honored to have this roster of really talented visual art, artists together
Yeah.
to then like figure out what projects we can work on and with in the future, help people get the recognition that they deserve from the
Yeah.
talented pool of people here.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I'm still doing Public Energy Radio at the same time for the events and everything.
Right.
Like between Miami Community Radio and just the events that I would hold myself, it's for the sounds and things that I don't experience relative to here, and it's more black centric. Like I want it to be for platform for black people, people of color, queer people, women, etc. Like because they're the forefronts, they're forefronters of all this stuff. Um, so between that, it's trying to do some merch every now and again. That was something that was long overdue that I've done for myself prior, but I wasn't happy of the things that I was putting out.
Mm.
And it's just really figuring out how to roll out my own projects with an aesthetic that updates over time. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to drop maybe like twice a year. Every 6 months seems good. I'll just try to roll out whatever I'm thinking and feeling, so it gives me
Right.
a good
Right. Right.
active deadline to produce at the same
Right.
time for just merch, other projects, figure out what other things I kind of create for myself. So I have this perpetual deadline versus
Right.
I'll make
Right.
stuff. you
Right.
know? Um, but and at the same time, it's I just want it to be kind of like my production house at the
Yeah,
same time. Like I just have
that's
all the
hard.
stuff that I can worry about for myself, create for myself is under this one little unified thing. I can bring
Yeah,
whoever, whatever I want. But also to me, it's just being unapologetic about joy. Fucking in this day and age, I feel like a lot of people will feel like they get clowned on for expressing any type of little joy that they have because they're
yeah,
worried about how the internet treats them. Being like,
yeah.
it'd be someone just doing a goofy dance, they get a recording of them, be like, "What's this dude doing?"
Right,
And
right,
they
right.
feel like you have to tone yourself down to
Yeah,
take it up. So like for me, it comes from the spectator view of going out. I feel like there's some
yeah.
people that act way too cool to go out and pretend that they're having a fun time when they're just bopping their head doing whatever. I'm like, dog, this shit is ripping right now. You better be on the
Exactly.
floor or
Yeah,
doing
go
something,
crazy.
go crazy. And I
Yeah,
feel like you shouldn't have to limit yourself to that. But to
yeah,
me as a person, I feel like sometimes and in some ways I've had to tone myself back for others. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that for others. You should just express it in the way that you should. And that's kind of all it is to me. I really want to see, this is going to be my baby. It's going to be my love child. And I want to see how it goes from top to bottom with all the things that I'm making. So it's just the one unified little thing. Um, I got some plans. I got some
yeah.
things. I'm in the middle of drop number 2 in my head right now. I
Nice.
kind of know what colors, items, and things that I'm making. I just have to design
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
um, but between that, the next thing to look forward to is that little Baltimore banger on September 23rd.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm bringing some excited. I'm really excited to bring down some good Baltimore heads. I can't really talk about it yet,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
I've
For
been
sure.
planning this for a long time. It's been really nice to bring down like earlier this year. I brought down Dirty Bird, Swami
Mhm,
Sound,
mhm.
Days God. I had support with Tony 7497 and myself. It was really great.
Yeah.
It was just so cool to be internet friends with Dirty Bird. He goes by Gum now.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and a lot of people told me like I didn't think I would see these people this soon, and seeing how happy everyone really was just from stuff that I just residually saw, on the internet and just kind of kept
Yeah,
up with made me
yeah,
so happy. And like that's the kind of stuff that I just don't see down here,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it's just this is the first time fully in my life where I feel like I have taste in the things that I look and experience and do. And I've never had the the will to really express that until now, if that makes sense. So like I just want to see how it kind of goes from curating all these things. If I can understand all these different facets of being multidisciplinary to then work with multiple kinds of people, I can express it better. And that to me is what all of this kind of boils down to at the end of the day. And I get to do all this stuff at my own pace and not be
Right,
held back.
right.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. How was and you kind of spoke to it a little bit, but how was just the reception? How did that feel? That piece of it?
Dude, between the New Year's stuff and the release party was
Yeah,
absolutely like ecstatic. Like I can still feel my my cheeks hurting
yeah,
from
yeah,
how
yeah,
it was. Yeah. Um it's just one of those that it's like how I said in the beginning, being perceived is so weird because I
yeah,
just don't know how it's
yeah,
taken or anything like that. So the one for New Year's Day was just I didn't know what to expect at all. But then kind of going back in for the release party and being more grounded in DJing, the people that I wanted to bring for the lineup, people being able to like pick up the merch and just check out a new space, like all that together, just and seeing how happy and chilling everyone was made me happy. Like I'm a big in my head, like just in my own separate of like parties and stuff like that. I love hosting people at my house. I just love having people over. So being able to have like all my homies at a venue and like everyone else was like the cherry on top on like a new space. So it was really just I have no other word than like it was truly just like it made me feel like bright.
yeah,
Like not in the
yeah.
sense like I'm a light, but in the inside I just felt really bright and
Right.
like warm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's so no, I was watching the videos and I just it's again so cool seeing so many people in support of like one idea and especially something that's so important. That's there's like a big hole and like you said, like a lot of these people who are working very, very hard on things like set design or just like simple type treatments or just all these kind of people who are interviewing people, like all these kind of voices and parts and pieces that fit together to make the machine that we all kind of love. They need a place to be able to voice their things and get their work off and be like, yeah, I did that, look at this, and you can look at this, you can come back to this, you can
Yeah.
enjoy that. So it just was very cool watching all of that kind of happen from the outside, just on YouTube and everything. And that's been really cool. I feel like you have a very authentic energy on your channel where it is just you sometimes just talking and being like, hey, this is what I did. And then it's like videos, and it's very very stylistic and in your eye and in your lens, which is cool because I feel like at, at this point I don't know if you could not do it that way. It just all it just feels like nice, it feels cool. Um and yeah, I just wonder, outside of the art, how are you kind of doing in just moving?
Dude, your guess is as good as fucking mine because I do not know. um, so yeah, to be frank, that's really what it is.
Yeah,
I will always have room for art.
yeah,
I'm an art person before I'm a music person.
yeah, yeah,
That's always how it's gonna be.
yeah,
I'm still gonna make time to make visually pleasing stuff, like with YouTube and everything. All I want to do is just like, here's a design breakdown. Here's how I
yeah,
made this.
yeah,
I do want to do some video essays stuff relative to music, just things that I'm passionate about, and then like, it's just gonna be an archive for all the video things that I make to post on like Instagram, plus all the mixes. That's really it. That's as good as I can make it. I don't think it needs to be a certain way. This is the imperfect thing we were talking about. It should just be organic as possible. And that rings true. If I stress about how it should be, it's just going to be too much or wasted effort. At some point, I'm not saying to knock anyone that puts effort into all those things, but like, it will come to the point when you're like, all right, this is the separation between the play and practice. I'm in play for all the YouTube and all these things, but for that's what's nice about music. I'm just playing around with it. I'm just having fun with it. Art I've already established and done for myself. There's a good overlap with it. Honestly, I really got into DJing too because it just allowed myself to platform what I'm doing more often than I would as a visual based person. So I was like, why be so separate? Why not just do it all at the same time? So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the goal at least. I don't have exact plans for what the video thing should be, but at the same time, it's just like, why not have fun? If I get to make some small stuff, collaborate with some people, it lives in some spots. I'm gonna put up like older mixes from SoundCloud when I like retire some things there. I'm gonna start putting just BTS stuff and so on. So I mean, yeah, I ironically enough, I wanted to do YouTube so bad as a kid, like super
mm.
bad. I wanted to do the whole gameplay commentary route. You
Yeah,
know
yeah,
how it was.
yeah,
So I'm glad it's cool to come back,
yeah,
seeing the fork, like what I could have done in the content creation stuff, which I hate the word content, but you got to do it today. And I think it's
yeah,
cool to figure out how many ways you can present the things that you
yeah,
have,
yeah,
and I want to see how I can maybe change or better the design landscape on YouTube, maybe just in like a really like authentic and organic way
yeah.
versus being like, oh, here's a tutorial on this or
Right,
that. I'm
right,
like, let's have a conversation
yeah,
about A, B, or C,
right,
or maybe it's like critique about this or how you just made something. Like people don't talk about their stuff as much as they think.
yeah,
I myself included. Like that's how I felt with kind of like merch and vending. I'm like, I don't give people opportunities to look at my stuff. I just think it is. But also, you have to imagine with design and other things that people are idiots. They've never seen this stuff. Like, you have to go from the perspective of someone who has never seen this ever and people that keep up with you all the time. So
exactly.
how do you do every kind of part of the spectrum
At the
for it,
same time, yeah,
at the same time? So all I can do is just keep it as if I was having a conversation to somebody in their
yeah,
face
yeah,
versus like, hey guys, today we're gonna no,
right,
that doesn't work.
right,
So
right, yeah.
yeah.
That part about, I think, the just having to explain yourself in so many different ways is so interesting. And you said you hate the word content, because it's such a blanket of, everybody has a different definition
Wait,
of
I
what.
hate to cut you off.
Yeah, yeah,
Just to pin that because I think about it a lot. I
yeah,
think in my mindset, it diminishes the value of what the intended thing is, only because of the pace of how we consume content. So
Exactly.
I could work on this for so long, but you just take it as a piece of content. It gets
Right.
reduced to this thing at this time
Right. I'll
versus I
scroll up.
spent months. Yeah, I spent months or this on that, and just be like, whatever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it just diminishes what you work on, and that's why I don't try to use the word content because
Yeah.
it would make me upset to. I would feel kind of hurtful saying
Hmm.
that to somebody.
Hmm.
Like I would feel like I'm jabbing somebody
Right.
saying that to somebody else's
Like your
work, unless
content.
I you feel like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not it to me. I'm like, I know you
Yeah.
put time and effort into it, but
Right.
if
Right.
it's like we've worked from you always work general to specific, but now it's like
Hmm.
we have this upside down cone where you have to make this tiny little thing to then
Right.
reverse funnel to the real
Right.
thing, which is weird
Yeah.
ish in my head. But at the end of the day, it's more respect for the work
Yeah.
you're producing,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. That's
Hmm.
you put that so well. It's weird, especially working like in an agency setting where
Hmm.
you're having to think about things in that way. And I think it's really cool. I feel like a few people are doing this. There's like the browser company and some other just like smaller creators who are expressing themselves in like their design thinking. I think that's one of my favorite things to really listen to. Just what I was thinking about when I approached this job. Like
Hmm.
what I had to do to get this from point A to point B. This is where I messed up. This is where I'll change for next time. That's it. Like that's all. It doesn't have to be a super amazing pitch deck or a super amazing thing. It's just
Yeah.
like, hey, from a human to another human, I did this. Take what you can from that. Goodbye. Like I love that so much, and it's cool seeing that kind of walk toward um just that energy of communication. But I wanted to just say thank you because I was on your website. You got a lot of texture packs on there.
You know it, buddy.
You got a, you got a lot of texture packs on there, and I'm gonna be copping and I'm gonna be using them.
You
And I
should.
feel
There's
I feel
plenty.
I feel like that's a very maybe niche to designers thing, and I feel like it's equivalent to like a drum kit for a producer
Yeah.
or something. But
Mhm.
I feel like if you know, but I don't know if it ever comes up in conversation with somebody who's not a designer. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
you got a texture pack coming out. I don't know if you I don't know if you want to do
Yeah.
anything with that. So it's like that lit up my head. I was like, this is the best. This is amazing.
Mhm.
And I wonder for you, how do you look for assets and inspiration for your work?
Mm. That's a good one. At least for the projects that I make and
Yeah,
produce, a lot of it comes from a place of the. It's really just the play, like how I said. It's the play that becomes practice.
yeah, yeah,
So like, I simply made. I'm gonna go back a little bit, but it's going back to the whole thing of like, what's the equivalent of this to that from music to art? Gumroad is a little oversaturated, but there's no Bandcamp for assets. Like there's no Bandcamp Friday on it. There's no thing where it helps like fund the creator. Like they get 100% of the proceeds and stuff. So I'm like, I just want to normalize that. That's why I'm trying to make so much stuff. Like, hey, designers, you should sell like textures, even just small little things. Put yourself out there so it finds your work. It's the same thing for like Behance and so on, which is cool. But that relies on Adobe and all of those things. It's just like, here's if you don't have a website, here's a good way to put it. But also Gumroad is for so many other things too. So between that, it goes to practice. I simply made just a random Illustrator document of just all these shapes that I was using, and then I made a
yeah,
free vector pack, and then I was
yeah,
like, all right, what are some other things I can kind of keep making and just practicing around and just see how this connects me to other designers with the stuff that they make, which unfortunately they don't do.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's in the sense of like I want to make it so not only do I have this catalog of stuff to work with if
yeah,
I'm ever feeling dull with
yeah,
the stuff that I'm making, but at the same time, it's really cool to just see, you know, how I can use these things to my advantage versus the things that I like. You know, having and finding inspiration is sometimes hard, not for myself, but other people. And it's like to help aid in that is really cool. I find some solace in it, but at the same time, my tastes and things are always ever changing, and I just want to be able to document that with the things that I might be into. Like one of them. Okay, cool little flex. I will say this. Last October, I was in the finalist circle for Serena Williams' design team for Nike. It was really cool. It was
Ooh.
super fun. And let me see. Do I have this under here? Yeah. It was called the Combine. It was like this cool
Mm.
little thing that they gave us
Yeah.
like this little menu of like
Yeah.
stuff that came with this cool toolbox that just like
That's hard.
stuff to do. So we did one day. It was 2 days. One
Yeah.
day was like a workshop. The other day was actually like do the design briefs. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
workshop was simply a mark making workshop. And they give us this like
Mm.
really nice paper and all these things. And literally for 3 hours, we were just all chatting in a Zoom room, just sitting down on the floor, playing around, just seeing all the different ways we can make marks.
Yeah.
And I
That's
simply
beautiful.
scanned that and just made
Yeah.
it like a texture pack. I was
Yeah.
like, it'll be $1 or something that's like mad affordable, but like
Mhm.
gives
Mhm.
you a bunch of different uses. And if
Right.
I didn't hop on that, I was like, damn, maybe I should just try to see in my own practice how I can do this.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where Dyed and Confused came from at the same time. It was just to
Mm.
go to make accessible printmaking in
Yeah.
my own backyard at home, sorry, a second. My own backyard at home. So I was like, well, I should scan these before I print on them so I get the most out of it. So that way I can use it in my own practice. And again, so it goes from the play to practice, play to practice. And it's cool to just see the cycle of, damn, I want to get better at making this. So I'm just going to play around with this by accident. But then it ultimately builds to this. So, like, I think about that, if I'm trying to think of it more not as like a drum kit or like any, type of sample pack, which it
Mhm.
kind of
Mhm.
is, don't get me wrong, but it's like, how you go on Bandcamp, you can
Yeah.
buy a compilation, you can
Right.
buy, singles, this, that,
Right.
stuff for your mix. I just want to think of it as a cool little way to just build up the catalog of
Yeah.
all the things that you're making. So
Yeah.
it's just a good little storefront, and I encourage designers to do it.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's hard to stand out because, like, it's oversaturated.
Yeah.
Between that, it's like Gumroad and Creative Market is the main two stores that
Yeah.
aren't your own personal website that have your assets. So to stand out in a sea of stuff is cool, but also there's not that many people on Gumroad comparatively to Bandcamp or
Mhm.
all these other music places. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to take, the time to kind of insert myself and see what's
Mhm.
up. I have a lot of stuff that's not affordable or free. Nothing is more than $10. Most of the things are less than three. And that's really it. So just over time, I can reflect on the projects that I made. If I lose the files, I can re-download them. Yada yada. Yeah, because you know how it goes. Sometimes shit gets corrupted, and it just lives
Yep.
online now, and you can just re-download it if need be,
Yep.
and so on. So yeah,
It's better than just having a screenshot of the image you posted on Instagram and that being the
you
only
feel
recoverable
me?
file.
You feel me? That's not it.
Oh, that
It's
is
not
not
it.
it at all. No.
Yeah,
Uh, Lastly, like really quickly, I think just one very thankful for this conversation again. Echoing the thing of being able to um, hear a language that I love so much be spoken so fluently, and to kind of have some in with that conversation was very amazing for me. But um, I just wanted to just ask, I guess, where, and then this is a question I know some people don't don't necessarily like, but I just want to know you as Ty Davis. Where do you kind of see yourself going in the near future, and what do you want people to kind of know about that journey you're going to take?
I want to be a creative director really bad for my own, stuff or
Yeah.
wherever I might be. Like,
Yeah.
growing up, my mom has had a small business my whole life.
Mm.
I've seen her do it for the past 27 years. You
Yeah.
feel me?
Yeah.
Um, and it's one of those things that if she can do it, I can do it. Like, why not? Like, you have no reason not to bet on yourself. You can still do it with all the things that you're doing. It's never too late. Just do it. Fall flat on your fucking face. Um, and you'll always bump into stuff. You'll always find some highs, some lows. And it's at the same time, it's just being honest and real about how you live and you breathe. I think that's just the biggest part about the journey of all the stuff that I want to do. Like, I just want to do it all with whoever I can, and I want it to be amazing work that we're amazingly happy about together. There's a lot of things, in the past years that have made me realize, like, what I want out of my career and the things that I do. And like, it took me a while to like accept and realize, like, bro, anyone can make a flyer for a party.
Yeah.
And I was really getting dubbed as like the flyer guy for a
Yeah.
bit. And it's something I still love doing and really like,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
really thought for a bit, I'm just gonna do this forever. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, dude, like you're so much more than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just being able to pull my own ideas out of my head is really powerful to me, and not knowing that knowing that I won't be held back, I
Yeah.
think is more powerful than what I will ultimately be.
Yeah.
I have no control, like, over that. As much as I have the goals and aspirations, I just want to say, like, fully with my own chest, I'm going to be able to do it. I'm too stubborn not to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really, I think, there is to say. I don't have
Yeah.
anything much more to top on it, but I'm going to do it regardless.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do regards. Yeah, that's amazing, and I hope everybody listening has had an amazing time and just picked up a few of the gems that were dropped today in this conversation. I want to thank you for coming on today. I want to thank everybody listening. No matter where you are, if it's day, night, or evening, stop procrastinating. Go get after your dreams. They're waiting for you. Have a good day. Peace,
Yo,
peace.
thank you so much again. I really appreciate it. I had a
Yeah.
wonderful time talking to you. It was cool to link up like this for the first time too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It
this
was a
is
cool introduction.
fantastic.
Yeah. Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
I got you.
Hmm.
Procrastination Radio.